And if I'm making noise, because I'm probably gonna make some lunch. Always.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
It's good. Where is Mother? Oh, here she is. Let me turn some lights on.
Yes, it's high noon. How are you, Tyler?
Oh, it's high time for a good time. All right.
Yeah, what you doing?
I have been, the last couple of days, I've been watching some webinars and things like that, learning different ways to track training and stuff like that. Pretty cool stuff.
Uh-huh.
You guys will
Good.
probably fall asleep in it, but I think it's awesome.
Hi, Daniel.
Hey, Mom. Tyler, I'm so disappointed that you guys couldn't apply for that job.
Yeah, you need a CSCS
Yeah, I
certification.
looked it up after you said it because I was like, I mean, I know that it's probably, let's call it overpriced. I didn't realize it was that overpriced for this certification.
What is it, like $10,000?
It's like $500 to take the test.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
that's not that bad.
it's not bad at all.
That's a lot.
No. What was this job?
Oh, it was a strength coach for the Orioles.
Oh, fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I sent
it's
it.
like
I sent it to
baseball
you
again, though.
So
Yeah.
I sent it when I saw the email, and I was like, "Oh wait, like it's like 4 a.m." But
What's
yeah,
up, you guys?
it's like 60 degrees here.
It's 60 degrees. Wow, that's nice. It's freezing cold here. I'm going to go for a walk after this. It's going to be so cold.
Yeah, be careful, there's ice everywhere.
I know. We're going to just go around the loop, I think, at Pinecrest. So we won't go to the lake. It's definitely too wet and icy.
Yeah, that's a good call, especially because the really steep paved area there.
Yeah.
Seems like
I
a-
don't know. We'll see how it is. I think probably the paths are okay. Like my sidewalks are finally dry and the
Good.
deck is a little bit dry, but I think it's supposed to be in the 60s on the middle of the week here.
Yeah.
I'm starting to be very concerned though about this this wave of cold weather tends to come across the ocean. And I'm
Now
not
you better hope you don't get what Texas got.
we'll be
Mm.
we're not as
You
worried
worried
about
about
that. We have different style of house. Like the houses here are made of wood, or they're not made of wood, they're made of stone. So it holds up a little bit better. And all of the power lines are underground.
Do you remember my friend Scoob?
Yeah.
Well, he lives in San Antonio. He has electricity, but he hasn't had water since Monday.
Well, you should tell them to be careful. I just read an article last night. They run on this like power supply called Griddy or something like that.
It's
Right.
called Texi or something like that. Yeah.
Anyways, it like competes with itself, right? And it gives people like the lowest rate because it's based off of competition, right? But now, since everyone is trying to get electricity, it's flipped, right?
Yes,
they-
because some people are going to get a $10,000 electric bill.
Yeah.
Have you
For a
did
single bedroom home.
Yeah.
you hear about this? Like the people that were like, I don't think you guys understand how bad this could have been. Like they didn't trigger the rolling blackouts. If there was a guy that like actually, I think the article I read said someone like had to stand up and say like we're doing this now because everyone was arguing about whether to do it or not. Because in 20 minutes, essentially, if they didn't do it then, the whole power grid would have just crashed.
Well, evidently, one of the other things that happened, Mike was telling me, is that Texas has their own power grid. They didn't want to connect because there's grids. We connect to the north. I mean, that we're the East Coast, but we can also connect to the West Coast. And so you can buy power from different sources. But Texas said, no, I don't want to do that.
It's important to know that actually the U.S. does not have its own power grid. Like it's not like designated on country lines. Like power grids actually cross country lines. They're based on metropolitan areas.
Yes, that's true. And we are on the same grid, the Eastern grid as Canada, and also the Western grid as also Canada, and I believe Alaska.
Yeah,
But
'cause
anyway, we'll see what Texas does, because the other thing Mike said happened was they took off a lot, they what did he call it? They took the power stations offline because they were doing maintenance. And the other thing they did when they built all their stations, because it never gets this cold in Texas, none of those things have heaters. Even the big wind turbines froze. because they don't have heaters.
Yeah,
So
there's-
somebody needs to have a come to Jesus meeting with the people in Texas. So
I mean, this was also the way that they sold this plan to the way that Texas was selling this plan was, oh yeah, this is how the free market should work. We can supply power like this, and it's like that's a like looking at it like with hindsight now, it's like that's a really bad call now.
right, well, they deregulated it, and then what happened is it was like the Wild West. You could build anything. There was no codes that they had to go by, but it was cheap, right? So now they're paying the price. And remember Rebecca, Mrs. Sample's daughter, she lives in Houston. They haven't had heat. I think they're going on like 10 days. So, and it was 45 degrees in their house, even with the fireplace going.
That's good.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's lucky they have a fireplace.
Right. Well, they ended up taking the kids and going somewhere else. It was just too cold.
All the pipes have to be frozen.
Well, that happened too. Yeah. So it's a big
I
mess.
actually learned in these situations when it's really bad like this, it's better for you to leave your faucets dripping.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true, because then it won't freeze. A lot of people do that. Like I actually did it by accident on my front faucet. I thought I had the water turned all the way off, but I saw there was like a little icicle coming out of it, which is fine.
Mhm.
You know,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that is perfectly okay.
but yeah, so I'm done with winter. We can't seem to have a decent snowstorm, so I'm done with ice. I've had like 3 days of ice. I'm over it.
It's weird
the
that
And
we
it's
have
supposed
this
to
nice
snow.
here.
It's supposed to snow on Monday,
What?
Of course. Well, I mean,
but
I
not till
can
10
look it up
o'clock or
and see.
so in the morning.
Let me go to
Really?
Yeah.
underground.
Oh, I got it starting at 7, Mom.
No, it can't start at 7. I don't want to drive in it.
Oh my god, today's high there is -2.
I know it's cold.
-2. Where?
Well, he doesn't do Fahrenheit.
Oh.
Okay, it's really difficult to be converting with all the people I talk to here to go to Celsius and then to convert back to Fahrenheit. So I just started using Celsius. It's awful.
That hard, Daniel. It means it's 30 degrees.
Yes, it's fine when you're around this number, but like, what's -8? 20, 22, 18? I don't know.
And let's just say it's cold.
No, the real struggle for me is when I look outside and I'm like, because I have when I go running, I have kind of like segments of like when to wear what outside, but I have these in Fahrenheit, like rough guides, just like general benchmarks for me, but I don't have them in Celsius. So I'll go like it's 10 degrees outside, which is like 50. And 50 I wear this. So I have to like make this jump every time. But today it was like 5 degrees, which is like 48 or something, or I don't know. I don't know. I don't remember.
Why don't you just stick your head out the window and say, okay, it's cold, it's warm.
I measure it, actually.
Yeah.
So I
Yes,
measure
you
it.
could do that too. Yeah.
And then it has a button on it. The red button is Celsius to Fahrenheit.
Oh, that's excellent. Then you don't
Yeah,
even need
learning.
to think about it.
So I measure and I go like, okay, wait. Because if it's 32 degrees, it's pretty. I know what I'm wearing outside. I'm wearing 2 layers with a thick like a thick undershirt and gloves and a hat. Like done
Right.
deal. It's when you sit in the middle, like when you don't know what jacket to wear, you're like, do I need a sweater under my jacket or not? Like that's the temperature that it was today, and it's like,
That's hard.
yeah, there's no winning.
So I have to go back in time because I forgot. I found my baby book.
Ooh.
So I want to show you this. This is what they used to put on babies' wrists. They're actually beads with your last name.
Yeah.
Makes
Isn't that
sense.
funny?
I bet they were made by, like just townsfolk.
I don't know who made them, but yeah. So that was my baby bracelet.
Oh.
But the thing I wanted to tell you is, so I don't know. Evidently, back when I was born, I'm really old, by the way. What was going on in the world when I was born? Guess what was happening?
This was when you were going on in the world,
1957.
1957. This would have been
Uh-huh.
like the height of the Cold War.
The big headlines of the world was that the atomic bomb was being tested.
Oh, was that Bikini Island?
I don't know. I have
Oh.
no idea.
Tested?
And the
I think they were
local-
already tested twice.
I don't know. And the local news was that fishing season was about to open.
Now
Ooh.
that tracks. that one makes sense. I think we can agree on that one.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Also, actually, to be fair, it's kind of a late fishing season.
Well, it was the end of May. You have to remember, usually there's snow on the ground still in May. So the other thing I wanted to tell you, so it goes like first year, second year, and all that stuff. And when we get to you guys, I have your baby book, so we'll go through that.
Ooh.
Oh God.
Anyway, so this is about what I did in my first year. Makes known likes and dislikes. My mother wrote 3 months. I have a hot temper.
She knew immediately.
And then she goes on to say that I could dress myself and feed myself when I was 1.5 to 2 years old. I find that very hard to believe. She must have had a really low bar.
Yeah.
What is entitled, what defines dressing and feeding yourself. And then the other thing I wanted to show you, let's see. So my first sentence, guess what that was?
What?
The dog waked up.
Nice.
Yes. Let's
It
see.
seems to track with the other stories you've told about animals.
Yeah, really. And then there was another thing. Let's see. Oh, at 10 months, I'm usually happy until I get very angry.
Well, that's wait.
Nothing's changed.
Right. I disliked clothes, evidently. Mom says she is happiest when she only wears a shirt and is lying on something hard, which is pretty much true.
Yeah.
But then I wanted to show you the freakiest thing. I don't know if you can see it, but that's my first tooth. Isn't that disgusting?
That's great.
Isn't that awful?
Why
That's
would you
cool.
keep it?
Huh?
Why would you keep it? Not you. I meant
Well,
like.
I guess, I don't know. I don't know if I put your first tooth in your baby books. I seriously doubt it. But then she says, here is my first tooth I lost February 11th, 1963. I don't believe in fairies. So Mom gave me a whole 25 cents and I bought Valentine hearts for Laurel and I. Oh, and here's my name. I wrote my name when I was in kindergarten.
Nice.
I had terrible penmanship even then.
Oh, yeah, it's not cursive. You can read it, actually. That's actually better than now.
Yes. I think that's all I wanted to show you in there. I just thought it was funny. And you probably can't see this, but this was my kindergarten class. We all went to see Santa.
Where are you?
Right there.
Here you are.
Wow.
My fat little face.
You
Yeah,
were in
so anyway,
kindergarten.
yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. And then, it's weird though, because I think I did this for you guys too, but everything that, people gave you, and I have no idea what this is.
Is it a snowflake? No, it's a piece of paper.
Oh my God, this is a letter from my mom.
To you?
Yeah, I think it says October 15th. Oh, I don't even know if I can read it. Dear Tracy, stay as sweet and clean as you are. You are something. I love you so much. And right now, I even compare my intelligence with yours. You're a good kid, so dear, and I believe, oh my God, this to be true. Life may be, I think it says too short. Make me proud, maybe? Wow, I'm gonna have to get the magnifying glass. And it's written in pencil,
Oh God.
and it looks almost like I washed it or something.
When was that
Wow,
written?
I didn't even know.
Might be
Oh.
worth transcribing, Mom. That paper looks a bit flimsy.
Something about like, I need help. So please understand, okay? We must have had a big fight. I think it says 1974.
So right before you went to the military?
Yeah, I was a senior.
Okay.
Well, I was probably probably going into my senior year. Wow. I'll look at that later and get back to you because I'll have to use the magnifying glass because it's really.
Take
Oh,
it out of
maybe-
the sun, by the way.
Huh?
Don't put it in the sun. Depending on it, like direct sunlight may make it harder to read.
Yeah. Oh, I think I do remember when she wrote this. Yes, we'd had a big fight. Okay, sorry. All right, I'll look at that later.
Where did you find that? In your baby book?
Yeah.
Hmm.
No, I didn't even see it when I picked the book up. I just saw there was a paper there. And I have to say though, you guys need to start writing things because when you find something like this, it's not the same as an email. It's a letter. It's somebody. I'm pretty sure that says 74. Yeah, we'd had this big fight because she called me from the bar and I had to go pick her up. I remember it was snowing. And she had a broken foot. And she was going backwards in the snow on her crutches. And I was really angry. Yeah.
Is that to
Anyway.
not slip on the ice?
Huh?
Backwards to not slip on the ice?
No, she was walking through the snow, but she was going backwards. She'd obviously had way too much to drink. And I was very angry because I was tired. It was like 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
I had school. Anyway. Okay, so you guys have any questions for me?
I think we've answered all the questions that I have about basic training and all that. We were just ending basic training, right, Daniel?
I believe so. And then you
No, we
about when you
were.
went to the next post you went to when you went to the tank mechanic, the artillery mechanic school
In North
and then
Carolina,
the what?
Kentucky.
Kentucky.
Yeah, no, I think we
then-
ended. I broke my contract and my assignment was Washington, DC. And I was going to Fort Myer.
And you worked in the Pentagon, and you went to the Pentagon a bunch of times, and you worked there right where you said you worked there right where the planes hit.
Right.
And you remembered that they had all this stuff for the service member I don't remember if it was service members or everyone within like on the strip there. I think you said it was. I don't remember. You said there was like food and hair and like a haircut place.
Oh, like a little
cleaning.
mall inside. The
Yeah,
Pentagon.
I think you called it like the strip or something like that. I don't remember what it was. And then you
The
you were
concourse.
the concourse. So on the concourse
Right.
was all this, and you were a typist there because you can type good. I think this
Okay.
is where we stopped.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
I was looking at Casey like, what was that?
Casey,
didn't
correcting
think-
your grammar.
Oh yeah, I know. That was that mistake was made on purpose.
Oh, tell Casey her class was awesome today. Okay, so let's see. All right, so I was working at the Pentagon, and when I first got to Virginia, my cousin Glenna and her two boys and her husband lived in Reston, which I thought was like super far away. Anyway, she picked me up when I got into the airport and she took me to Fort Myer where I was going to live. But I spent most weekends at their house and we would go all over the place and go sightseeing. And it was a lot of fun because I didn't have a car. So, I was pretty much trapped by her. But anyway, but it was fun. I got to hang out with my cousins and that was okay. And so I really liked living on Fort Myer. I did find the pictures are really awful, but the rooms were tiny. Our room, which had two people, two dressers, a foot locker, 2 foot lockers, was probably no bigger than this dining room. It was tiny. And so, there was like maybe this much room between our beds even, and one was on one side of the room and one was on the other side of the room. So I really didn't like hanging out in my room very much because it was so little. And anyway, so.
Is it the same? Is it the same now as it was then? Yeah.
The barracks are still the same. Yeah.
I do have a kind of like. Sorry, continue. I just had a question about the fort and what it was like, what it's like there, because I don't know about you, Tyler, but I didn't actually realize that Fort Myer is like the grounds are Arlington National.
Yeah. Yeah.
I,
So I
I
think I told you guys, I loved living at Fort Myer because it was very quiet, and I loved the military because it really gave order. I mean, there was taps and morning reveille and everything happened at the same time every day. So you knew what was expected of you. But yeah, and actually, I used to walk through the National Cemetery all the time and run through it too. It was always very, very peaceful for me. I mean, after you had a busy, hard day, I would always either go for a run or for a walk through the cemetery. And it was sad because, people would be there visiting their loved ones, but it was also very peaceful. So, and then when you went, I don't know if you guys remember, but remember when we went to Lee's house at the very top of that hill and you look over? I always thought that is just a fabulous sight.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. It's
Pretty heavy.
It is pretty heavy. Yeah. But anyway, so I liked my job and I liked all the people, and compared to basic training, being in the military was nothing. It was great. I mean, we still had PT, and we still had, you still had to stay up like 24 hours every 3 weeks or whatever when you do the duty and stuff like that. But it was fine. I didn't mind it at all. So I was really homesick, and I was really looking forward to going home, and I knew I was going to be able to go home for Christmas. So I was very excited when it finally came time, and but I never got released. It took them forever to release me, and so I couldn't buy my ticket until I had my release papers that they were going to let me go on leave. So the only ticket I could get was on Christmas Eve. And if you ever get a chance to fly on Christmas Eve, it really is a lot of fun. Everybody's in a good mood, and the stewardess said some stupid little poem over the intercom, and they passed out champagne to everybody, even the people in cattle class. Anyways, yeah, so my boyfriend Kay was supposed to pick me up at the airport, and my plane didn't even land until like 11 o'clock into Salt Lake. And so it's a 3.5 hour drive through 2 canyons to get to Bear Lake from there. So we got something to eat, and we jumped in his truck, and it was horrible. I've never been so scared in my life. It was like a blizzard. It was a whiteout, except for it was dark, but you couldn't see anything. It probably 3.5 hour drive. It probably took us over 5 hours to get home. So that put us at my house like at 4 o'clock in the morning. We were exhausted. And just like today, everybody is up early in my house, even when I was little on Christmas morning. So it's like I was so tired. We got no sleep. And all of a sudden my grandmother is there, or not my grandmother, but Laurel was there. And I think my cousin was there. And it's like 6 o'clock in the morning. Everybody had to get up and start Christmas. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so tired. But it was good because
not sleeping. When you sleep
Yeah.
for like 2 hours, it's almost worse.
yeah, it was. It would have been better to stay up. And then Christmas at our house was always a big deal. And we just didn't have Christmas at our house. We would go to my cousin's house, and then, somebody else would come over, and then there'd be, more people. It would be like nonstop. Either you're going to somebody's house or they're coming to your house or whatever. So I was really tired, but I was so happy to see my family. I really, really missed them. I was very homesick. And I was really happy to see my dog, Maisie. She was there. I should have showed you a picture of Maisie. I'll show it to you next time. Anyway, yeah, you saw her. She's the one that has the dog bed and everything. Yeah. So I think I could only stay a week. And I just remember it was fun to catch up with Marge. My friend Marge was there, and she was married at the time to this jerk named Larry, but whatever. That didn't last very long. But
Marge and Larry, they sound like a sitcom
The
couple.
Simpsons, right? They sound like the Simpsons.
No, they don't just sound like the Simpsons. What they sound like is like the Simpsons neighbor. Like they have like two very
whatever their
unassuming
name
names.
is. Yeah. So anyway, so the week went by really fast, and it was time for me to go. So he took me to the airport, and off I flew. And then I was just, I was working a lot and hanging out in the Pentagon, which I thought was great fun, because you could on my many rounds to deliver things, you could go up to the Joint Chiefs of Staff and, sit there and watch them do their thing. And you could pretty much go anywhere. I mean, I even went to the, what's that called? The War Room? I think it's called the War Room. That's very cool. Yeah. But it was at the Pentagon that I saw the biggest rats I've ever seen in my life. They were the size of cats. And one of the things that we did, we would deliver things to all the other the bases from the Pentagon. So it'd be me and these two big black guys in this great big truck. And they always thought it was great fun. They would chase the rats with the trucks. And I would be like, oh my God.
So are they bigger than your cats now?
They were way bigger. They're way bigger than Addie. They weren't afraid of anything.
I think I remember you and Joni talking about them at one point.
Probably.
How do they get so big?
What?
How do they get so big?
I guess because there's the things to eat. I don't know, because, well, and I think
it's a
rats aren't
government.
exactly small. Like rats aren't exactly. They're larger than you think.
They're not as big as cats.
These were really big rats, and they weren't afraid of anything. I mean, they weren't running away. They would stand their ground. And I'd be like, ugh, this is horrible, horrible, horrible.
I've heard that the Pentagon is both extremely well planned and extremely poorly constructed.
No, on the contrary, I think the Pentagon was, I think initially it was a hospital. I think originally it was a hospital, or maybe it was supposed to be a hospital, and then they turned it. You can look it up. I'm not really sure, but no, it's very well made. I mean, it's been around forever.
Yeah,
And
no, I just feel like with the rats and stuff.
When the plane crashed into it, the plane pretty much stopped, right?
Oh no, Mom. What I meant was like there's rats and stuff there. I've heard like the walls they make sense, but they're with like asbestos because when it was built, so they had to like redo all of these at one point because it's an old building.
Right. No, I think getting around the Pentagon is way easier than getting around a modern office building, because there's always a door with a step, and you can go straight up 5 levels in a second, right? Not in my office building. I mean, there's 2 doors, right? And you have to walk, I don't know, 10 minutes to get to the door, but whatever.
Right. So
but anyway,
my
so
office is shaped like
yeah,
a U, Mom. It's the worst.
the what?
My building is shaped like a U.
Right, and you probably can you go cut through the U?
No. There's a door that you can go out of the doors at the ends of the U, but you can't go back in them.
Yeah. So anyway, so by this time it's probably, I think it's January. I think it was cold. Anyway, one day I got a call from my cousin, and she told me that, well, I knew my mom was in the hospital, but, and I had talked to her, I don't know, 3 or 4 days before I got the call from my cousin, and she had asthma and she had a really bad cold. So she was in the hospital, and they were giving her oxygen and everything. Anyway, my cousin called to say that they had found my mom in the bathroom and she was unresponsive. And she said that, I mean, this is a little tiny hospital, like maybe 6 beds. So they'd done all these tests, but there wasn't anything they could do. She had a heartbeat, but she wouldn't wake up. And so my sister and I can't remember if it was a little plane or a helicopter. I'm thinking it was a helicopter. They actually airlifted her from Bear Lake to Salt Lake City. And so they said, you need to come home. So I talked to my boss and told him what was happening. And it took a bit of time because, the Army doesn't do anything quickly. But anyway, it probably took me 3 days before I could get there. And so I flew straight into Salt Lake, and my cousin Marcia, the same one that called me, she picked me up and we went straight to the hospital. And my dad was there, and they were running all these kinds of tests. And this is why I told you guys from the very beginning about, do not put me on a ventilator, do not keep me alive, no extraordinary measures. Because when I got there, there were tubes all coming out of every place in her body. She was on a ventilator. They had big monitors everywhere with heartbeat and all this stuff. And I walked up to the side of her bed, and she was moving like her arms and her legs. And I thought that was a good sign. And the doctor came in, he's like, no, that's not a good sign. I guess when you have brain damage, you still move. Your brain is like firing.
Mm.
And I guess you have like,
Like
I
those
don't know
kind
what
of
you
jerky
call it.
movements.
Yeah,
were they
yeah.
kind of like not like a seizure, but like just
It's like
sort of
she'd go like that, or her leg would kick up or whatever. It was
Oh.
like she wasn't firing on all cylinders. Anyway, so and my dad was a wreck. My sister was staying, and I don't remember this either, but Laurel told me this. My sister was staying, remember Clark and Donna, our friends that had High Hopes, the boat? So we were all staying at their house. And she was staying there. And I don't remember this, but this is what Laurel says. So after I went to the hospital and we talked to the doctors and everything, we went home that night and we were going to go back the next day to talk about what we were going to do. And Laurel says that I told her that she really didn't want to see mom because it was horrible. It wasn't, I mean, it was terrible. I mean, it was hard enough for me. I was 18. She was only 15. I don't know if that was the right thing to do or not. But she said, when I said, you really don't want to see her, she said, okay. And she evidently never did see her until after she was dead. But anyway, and I think looking back on it now, I think that's way better because the memories I have of my mom are not good. I mean, it was horrible, horrible, horrible. And so anyway, so we went back to the hospital the next day, and we were very lucky in some ways because, and I don't know if you've ever heard of I think it's the Carol Ann Quinlan, I think was her last name, versus the state of New Jersey. So in the 70s, it was up to the state to decide whether you should be kept alive by extraordinary measures, like a ventilator. It was up to the state, and it was up to the state when you could be taken off the ventilator. So we were lucky, and I think Idaho was a state that decided, so we were lucky that they airlifted her to Utah because Utah was not that way. Anyway, and so we got to decide what we should do. And after many, many meetings with doctors and going over everything, and I don't remember my dad being very much help. I just remember he cried all the time. He was just like a lost soul. It was very, very sad. Anyway, so after meeting with the doctors multiple times and them explaining it over and over and over to us, that her brain was basically dead and she would never, ever, if she woke up, she wouldn't know who we were. She wouldn't know anything. So the reason why I'm telling you about this Carol Ann Quinlan case, so the state of New Jersey in this, and she was 18, this young woman, right? She was 18. Their parents sued and they won, and they got the right to have her taken off the ventilator. And they really thought, all the medical people really thought that this girl would die, within hours, but she didn't. And her parents elected to keep a feeding tube in her. And this girl was in a vegetative state for 8 years. 8 years before she died. So that's not going to happen to me. And I was not going to let that happen to my mother. But we didn't know any of that. We just knew that we were lucky because we could decide whether to take her off life support or not. And so my dad and I were I remember we were sitting in the waiting room, and this woman doctor comes in, and she's like, this was before you did organ donors on your ID. And because my mom, bless you, because my mom was only 40 years old, she was a great candidate for organ replacement for other people. And I know we donated her eyes. I think we might have done her heart, but I'm not sure. Her lungs, because she had asthma, and so she was a smoker. That wasn't going to go anywhere. And at the time, that was also really, let's just say we were forward thinking, because the Mormons kind of frowned upon that. At the time, they didn't believe that you should donate any organs or anything. But I was like, she had beautiful eyes. Let somebody see, right? So anyway, so we donated her organs, and that hadn't happened yet. And so And I could have sworn Laurel was there, but she says no. We had, because my mom was LDS, we had the bishop came and they did like a prayer and everything. And then I think my cousin was there. I don't know. It's been a really hard week for me because I have not thought about this in like over 40 years. But anyway, so I want to say they took the ventilator out and they took everything out. You know, all she had was maybe a IV bag for fluids and probably a catheter. And we all said goodbye to her, you know, but this is the thing, like, there's your physical body and there's your spirit, right? In my mom's case, her spirit wasn't there anymore. It was, I mean, you could, and I don't know how to explain this, and this is really morbid, but when you ever in your life get to a point where you have to put down a pet and you're holding that pet and they give them that little injection that makes them sleepy, they're there, right? The pet you love, because you don't love their body, you love their spirit, right? You can feel that. But when a person or when an animal died, this is what I believe because I felt it, their spirit leaves and you can feel that it's just gone. So when I held my mom's hand, I knew her spirit wasn't there anymore, but it was still horrible, right? So they disconnected everything and they said, okay, it's going to be about 24 hours and then she'll peaceably go, you know, she'll die. But she didn't. We waited, it was over 3 days. And the doctors are like, we don't know, we don't understand what's happening. You know, and in the meantime, the donating people, they're waiting, you know, because they have to take them. I think you have to take organs within a couple hours or something, maybe even less than that. Anyway, but I just remember going to the hospital every day and sitting there and watching her. And it was like she was waiting for something because the doctors are like, we don't know why she's not dead. We don't know how long she's going to be like this. And so finally,
You gotta wait for the bus.
huh?
Sometimes you gotta wait for the bus to take her
Yeah,
out.
well, I don't know what she was waiting for, but finally, ultimately, she did pass away. And looking back on it, because my dad had, I think I told you he was an orphan. He was raised by his aunts, and basically he boomeranged to everybody's house, and he really didn't have any kind of stable life until he met my mom. But it was really probably a very brave thing because I think he knew that would be the end of him, and it was really. Anyway, so she died. She passed away. It was very, very sad. And we went home and told Laurel, and she was a mess. Everybody was a mess. It was a really, really bad time in our family. But it taught me that I would never put you guys through that, which is why I've told you from the very beginning, no extraordinary measures. I will haunt you. It's not gonna, won't work.
I think you're gonna haunt us either way.
Yeah, well, but it'll be a happier haunt. Yeah, no vent, none of that. So, but I mean, to my mom's defense, this is the other thing, because in my family, we didn't talk about anything. We weren't even allowed to talk during dinner. You know, we didn't talk about big, heavy stuff like this. So we had no idea what she wanted. I mean, she was only 40 years old. Nobody thought she was going to die, right? So pretty much we just kind of thought about what we thought she'd like. And I think she would have been happy that we donated her eyes. But anyway, I don't even remember. I don't remember how we got her body back to her, but we did ultimately, and we had a funeral, and I think Laurel even spoke. I don't remember anything about it, just about everybody was so very sad, so very sad. And so because I'd been gone, you know, from the Army for such a long time, I had to leave the very next day to go back. So I didn't, you know, I couldn't help with anything. My aunt was there. She was trying to help my dad, but my dad he was like, I don't think he was sober from the day she died till off and on till the day he died. After that, it just destroyed him. So anyway, the other thing I forgot to tell you, which is a happy story. So when my cousin called and told me that I needed to go, I made my reservations, you know, as soon as I could. And I think I took the bus. I must have taken the bus to Reagan National. And I get up to the counter and I give the woman my ticket and she's like, oh, you're going to Salt Lake? I'm like, yeah. She's like, you're at the wrong airport. I was like, what? Oh my God, it was terrible. And I just started to cry. And she's like, what's the matter? And I told her my story, you know, that my mom was dying. And she's like, hold on. And she transferred my ticket to a totally different airline. Yeah, she got me a cab. She paid for the cab to take me to Dulles, and I made my flight. It was just unbelievable. I was like, I still look back at that, and I didn't even think to even find out her name. You know, I was just a puddle of mess. But anyway, so yeah, and so then after my mom died, it was like she was the glue that held our family together. And everything just fell apart. And I wasn't even there to help put the pieces back together. So Aunt Laurel, really, I mean, she had a hell of a time. The next 3 years for her were terrible because, well, she said she told Dad that she wanted to go to college, and he told her it was a waste of money, that she needed to get a job. And she said that she told him that it didn't look to her like he was making very good decisions. And but that's the other thing. He never went to school after 8th grade. He quit to support himself. I know you can't make up this.
No, I just mean like, I'm shaking my head thinking like, I just don't understand the logic that goes into, no, don't do that. Do what I did.
Well, before we get too far away, do you remember the story you used to always tell us growing up about the night after she passed away?
Oh, that was my grandmother. Or maybe it was her too, but no, it was my grandmother. And that's why. So after my grandmother's funeral, I was in the basement, which I loved and hated at the same time because it was far away from everybody and it was dark down there. And yeah, I do remember waking up because my grandmother loved gladiolas. And I just had this incredible smell. It was like overwhelming smell of flowers in my room. And I'm sure, I know it sounds weird, but why would I get that smell? You know, I'm sure it was her. But that's why even to this day, like whenever you go to a funeral, I cannot be around those flowers. It's like they permeate my skin or something. Yeah. So then let's see what else happened. I went back to the Army and I think, yeah. So right after I got back, I was reassigned to a different location. And let's see if I can find a picture. And so what my job was, I still worked in the mailroom, but I was a key punch operator. And this is what it looked like. Okay, so you put these little cards in there and then you would type on the screen and you would feed it through the thing and it would punch all these crazy little holes in there. And then my job was after I'd punched all the cards, which basically was addresses and whatever was going to be in the package, right? Then it's kind of funny though, because I talk about testing payroll now. I was actually doing, like, it wasn't payroll, but it was basically distribution back then. So I'd take all those cards and there'd be like this many of them because we shipped worldwide, right? And I'd put them in this great big culling machine and I would run all that. And they would spit out and I'd put them all in their little cubbies and then the guys would come along and wrap them up and we'd ship them out. But it was during this time that when I was doing I loved this machine. It was so much fun. It was like a game to me. So it was during that time that I really got interested in computers. And I started community college and well, back in the day, it was called data processing, right? It wasn't programming or anything like that. And yeah, so that was like when I first decided I wanted to do that kind of stuff. And I loved the classes too. The classes were fun. But what I didn't love is because we'd have these great big boxes of those cards and your program would be on there and you would hand it to the operator and then you'd come back like 6 hours later and see what your mistakes were. It was horrible. And one time I dropped my box and the cars went everywhere. It was terrible because you couldn't put them back in order, right? It was, yeah. Anyway, so this is what I looked like. This is what I looked like in 1977. And this was the style, so no judging, okay? Look at those eyes.
Whoa.
How much money did you spend in eyeshadow?
I look kind of like Princess Diana. I think I had the hair thing going, but look at those eyes. They're like, ooh.
I mean, the mascara alone, Mom. I'm concerned about how you were spending your paycheck.
Isn't that funny? Oh my
How long did it
God.
take you to put on that? Like it looks like you're just like holding up a can of spray paint and went like.
I look like a raccoon.
Yeah. A bit, yeah.
Yeah, and
That
I
is-
was all, let's see, how old was I then? This is 1977. Yeah, so I was 19.
I mean, that's really 70s. That's really
That's
70s.
scary, right?
I mean, but it's the stone washed like jacket as well, like all of it. It's just it's a very 70s picture.
I don't know what happened to my other pictures. I had more pictures.
So
Oh,
while yeah, Mom, I very much understand this. Waiting for 6 hours and then seeing something finish and going like, oh, you made a mistake on line 4, and you're like,
I know, right?
I
Okay,
what?
I don't know what happened to my other pictures. Hold on, let me go see if, because I have to show you these. Hold on.
Tyler, it's the worst. It's the absolute worst.
Why doesn't it stop after line 4?
It does, but if you're expecting this to run for 8 hours, you go, I'll just start it and go to sleep. So you start it and wake up the next morning and go like, I wonder how my code turned out. And you go like, oh, this failed 10 minutes afterward. And you go like, you just sit there and stare at the screen like, come on. I can't tell you how many. Oh, my favorite is there are days where you will enjoy this, Tyler. I essentially will rage quit my day. And I'll get so fed up with a problem that I'll just go like, no, I'm done. I'm going home. And I just leave. Like I'm like, no, it's a problem for tomorrow. Like I'm out. I can't tell you how many days in Ulish I would do this and I would get all really upset. And it's like 5 o'clock and I would look at my office mate and go like, I'm going home. Have a great day. Sorry. And I would just leave. He'd be like, all right, see ya. Like it was nothing.
I can't rage quit every day. I can't
It's
rage
not an
quit.
everyday thing.
That's
It's
Princeton.
like a 1 in 10 maybe. Depends on
I
how
think I
depends on
forgot
how
to
long I'm
print them.
debugging.
Go print them.
Well, I'm going to.
Mom, I'm enlightening Tyler about the joy of debugging.
Oh God, it's horrible.
I was telling Tyler that there are days when I'm working on something, if things are going poorly at the end of the day, I'll just like rage quit the day and be like, you know what? No, I'm going home. Not doing this anymore. This stupid problem can't wait till tomorrow. And I leave.
Right.
So I don't really have a ton of experience with that, but I'm getting a little bit now with the WKO software and like a little bit of coding and whatnot. But since I'm not a coder, I don't really know how to do it. So I have to take other people's charts and I have to take little snippets of code and add them in and like tweak them. So imagine just like your problems, right? And then think like I'm doing that without really knowing anything.
Oh, Tyler, that makes you a coder. I'm gonna let you into the secret right now. There is no 100% original software anymore. Like when I have problems, Stack Overflow, like right away. It's like someone else has had this and solved it, so I'm just gonna use their solution.
Yeah, I don't use Stack Overflow, but I use like other Facebook groups and things like that. Same thing. I've had people just straight up email me charts. Like, oh, just use this.
Yeah.
Like,
Welcome
I'll
to
send
coding.
you a private message, and then you just download it. You're like, this could be something that breaks my computer or the exact thing I'm looking for.
It's probably fine.
Yeah. Did you get them?
All right, let me. They're printing. Okay, so all right, so during my new assignment, that's when I met this guy. His name was Jan. He was also German. I don't know what it is about German people.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, so he worked next door and he was a lithographer. Do you know what that is?
No, I lithographer.
A writer.
That-
Close, he's a printer. So he worked in the print shop next to my office, and we would just run into each other in the hallway, and we just started hanging out. And
Hold on. What does a lithographer do in 1975?
okay, so a lithographer is basically a printer. They run printing presses. They set, some of them set the type for like a newspaper or a newsletter. He was basically, it sounded to me like the boringest job in the world, just making copies of books and stuff like that. So, and it would be days and days and days. You'd be running these huge presses, and they'd be printing books. So he was a lithographer, and his father was in the army, and he worked upstairs. He was an officer. Anyway, so let me see if the picture's ready. Hold on. Sorry.
Sounds pretty exciting.
Sounds super boring.
Sounds like you just said it and then just literally walk away for 3 or 4 days.
I don't know. I mean, with the printing stuff, like think about these printers back then. You just saw the machine that Mom worked on. I imagine the printers were like something that you had to like full-time operate.
Giant warehouse.
Oh God. That sounds also still super boring. Like it sounds like a factory job, but just slightly better with computers involved.
Yeah.
Like
Now you can just do it with one printer.
it's crazy, isn't it?
I think it should be better now. I think we're actually falling behind
With printers?
everything. Technology. The rate of advancement is slowing.
I don't know. I'm seeing some pretty cool stuff happening.
Well, you're on the edge.
Actually, quite literally, yes.
I'm in the mainstream. Probably even like the end of mainstream.
No, you're getting a bit out of the mainstream at this point. You're starting to actually look at code and see how code works and understand how like programming things like happens. By the way, once you see how people like how coding things work, is it easier to understand like why things are in certain places on computers? It's like, why is it here? It's like, oh, because it fits there.
Did you ever
Like-
have that coding class in high school?
Nope.
There was this guy, he had like glasses, he was a weird teacher. And I used to sit in the back and play Halo on the computer. And then whenever he would come around, do the alt tab trick, alt tab, and pretend like I didn't know what I was doing. So I didn't really have any code written.
So I took an HTML class when it was like, here's how to write a website, and like people would struggle, and I was like, what are you struggling with here? It says in the book literally what you have to write. Like where is the disconnect? So I would do all this in the first 20 minutes of class, and I would look at the teacher and go like, I'm gonna play games now, and they'd be like, no, and I was like, I'm done, and they went like, do something productive.
Okay, I'm back. So here's the picture I told you about my grandmother. That it's a picture of her looking in a mirror. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Very abstract.
Anyway, so I met this Jan guy, and well, I forgot to tell you, I broke up with Kay, my boyfriend that turned
Yeah,
out to be a millionaire.
What happened?
Anyway, so
He turned out to
I
be a
started
millionaire?
going out with, huh?
He turned out to be a millionaire.
Yeah, he's a millionaire now.
Nice.
Yeah, he invented some kind of, well, he didn't invent anything. He lives outside Jackson Hole, and he runs he makes steel beams for buildings.
This is the guy in Idaho.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that sounds objectively awful.
Yeah, Mom, everyone's a millionaire now anyways, you know?
Except for us,
No,
right?
no, not the money part of it, but like, what do you do? It's like I make steel beams. It's like,
Well, he doesn't make it.
yeah, but
His company does. Yeah. But anyway, so so Jan and I got married, and we were married in the chapel at Fort Myer, the little one that's got the steeple.
Wait, the printing press guy you married?
Yeah, this is him. I told you I was married once before Dad.
Twice, or well, engaged twice.
Well, yeah, that, but only married twice.
Wait, to that
That
tall
hair
guy with the
though.
mustache?
Yeah, isn't he
mean,
funny looking?
Oh,
That hair, he has the same hairstyle as your bridesmaid, I'm guessing.
Okay, so the person next to him is Aunt Laurel.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then the
Who's next?
person next to her is my cousin Glenna's husband. His name was Ernie.
Who's next?
And then the person next to me is my cousin Glenna, and that's my Aunt Toby.
Yeah,
Aunt
Glenna
Toby.
and the guy and I what's his name again? I already forgot. Not K, it's
Jan.
Jan.
Yeah.
You went from K to you're just moving down the alphabet. Or up rather.
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way. But anyway, so they all came for the wedding, and here's something that I found. I don't even know why I have it. But it's an article from the local paper called the News Examiner, and it says that on September 15th, Theone Williamson, Laurel Stock, and Marsha Hoff boarded a plane at Salt Lake City for Dulles Airport, Washington, D.C. There they were met at Dulles by Mr. and Mrs. Ernest Thiel, my cousin and her husband, their sons, Ernie and Bradley, and Tracy Stock and Jen Phillipson of Vienna, Virginia. The next 2 days were spent sightseeing in DC and making preparations for Tracy and Jan's wedding. Saturday, September 18th, the wedding of Tracy Marie Stock and Jan Chris Phillipson was held at the Post Chapel, Fort Myer, Virginia. The reception was at the NCO Club. I told you about the NCO clubs on the base and followed the ceremony. After the reception, the newlyweds and family members returned to the Thiel home in Reston to await the arrival of Jack Stock, Tracy's father. So I didn't even know he was coming. And I don't know why he got there late, but I remember him being there. That was really the last time I saw my dad. The fact that he actually came, I need to ask Laurel. I know by this time they were probably on the outs with him. My aunt had no use for him after my mom died, and rightly so. But he actually did come to the wedding, which I was flabbergasted that he was even coming. I think it was supposed to be a surprise, but the surprise was that he missed everything. But he did come. So, I mean, that says a lot, right? He did come to the wedding because everybody wanted me to stay in Bear Lake and marry Kay, and that wasn't happening. So, anyway, so he grew up an Army brat. His father was a military man, and they moved, like, remember when Opa said he was in the military? They moved every 3 years. And so that summer in 1977, the next summer, my enlistment was up, and Jan had been moved around his entire life, and he wanted no part of moving around anymore. He said that he was staying put, and so he didn't want any part of the Army life. And I was like, oh, what should I do? I was only 19, right? So anyway, I decided not to re-up, and I didn't really want to, just go off and be married to somebody and not be around them. That didn't seem to make any sense. So I ended up getting out of the military, and I went to work for the Defense Intelligence Agency.
Oh.
It was very funny because I didn't even change desks. I just changed the clothes I had on. One day I went to work in a uniform and had to salute my father-in-law. And the next day I could just wave in my civilian clothes and go on my way. So
That must have been nice.
it was nice. It was very nice. And so I worked for the Defense Intelligence Agency for, it was probably 3 years, I guess, as a civil servant. And I have to say, it was the boringest job I've ever had.
Is DIA headquartered at the Pentagon?
No, but they have offices there. So the Pentagon is all military. So there's all different branches of the service, and there's also all kinds of offices in all kinds of parts of government there. But anyway, so I got a promotion when I was at DIA, and I ended up leaving my beloved key punch machine, and I went to work in another office building, which was down in Roslyn. It's called the Key Building. It's still there.
What was
God.
Roslyn like back then?
Okay, so I was actually working in one of the tallest buildings there, and the planes would come so close to the building, it would rattle the windows. It was scary. And then I remember they built the USA Today building, and that was even taller than us. And then the planes had to go a little higher, so it wasn't as bad. But I remember it being noisy, dirty. I hated it there. It was like being in the city, and I had no use for it. It was horrible.
Roslyn's still an interesting.
It's just awful there. I don't know. I think they're trying to revitalize it, and make it, there's no area to walk around,
Yeah.
really. I remember there were like these sky bridges. It was like you were, in the jet age or something, because you never touched the ground. You're always on these flyovers, right? It was horrible. It was
Not gonna
horrible.
lie, every time I go to Roslyn, I always forget that I'm in Roslyn because it's like, what's here?
Yeah, you can't really
Nothing.
do anything.
It's like there's some offices and some houses, I guess.
Well, and there's, it's really, Roslyn isn't really that far from, where did Tanya and Zach live? In Arlington?
Old Town,
No, what's it called? Everybody wants to live there. Shit.
Colonial Village, Leon Park, Virginia Square,
No. It's
Cherrydale,
Boston.
Ashton
Ba-
Heights.
yeah, it's like Ballston. Okay, so it's not that far from Ballston. But yeah, but it was never an option. You couldn't walk anywhere. I just remember it being horribly boring. And my job was terrible. I worked with this guy. His last name was Hebert. Hebert is how you said it, but it's spelled Hebert.
He's
He was
French.
this French guy, right? And he made me laugh so hard every day. That was the only reason why I went to work. But I was so bored, I could not stand it. And there wasn't really that much work. And the thought of being bored, so I made 3 bad decisions in my career, right? I shouldn't have gotten out of the army. I shouldn't have left the government. That was my other bad decision. I don't know.
They not
Anyway, I could be, the point I'm trying to make is that I could have 2 retirements already, right? If I would have just stayed in the military. But anyway, so I was so bored, and I was going to school at night. My marriage was pretty much falling apart.
Why?
Well, he wanted children. I didn't want children because he was mean. I didn't think he'd be a good dad. I told you that I never wanted kids till I was in my 30s, right?
He was mean?
He was just mean. I mean, it was like his way or the highway, and I was like, okay, I'll take the highway. It was like,
Well, if it's gonna be like that, then no.
yeah.
Sounds like you.
Yeah. But anyway, by this time, I was very unhappy. I was unhappy at home. I was unhappy at work. And I had a friend that also worked for the DIA. And she's like, hey, I got a call from this. We called them headhunters. I don't know what you all call them now, but a recruiter.
Yeah.
She's like, hey, I got this call from this recruiter, and they're looking for, I think it was secretarial stuff. And she said, are you interested? I'm like, well, I don't know, let me see. And so it turned out I was interested because the pay was like 3 times the amount of what I was making.
For secretary, yeah.
Yeah, and because it was clearance based too. So because I had worked for DIA for so many years and I was in the military, and I was a pretty good security risk. I mean, I wasn't doing anything illegal.
It's like your clearance will fly through the steps.
Well, I already had it. I just had to get a higher one, right? Anyway, so I interviewed, and I was like, I remember thinking that it was so far away. I lived in Vienna at the time. Do you know where the Mosaic, the whatever that metro is? What's that one called right there?
Hold on, let me
In
Google.
Vienna, is it the
Not Vienna.
past Reston?
No, it's before Ruston. It's
Oh,
right by
Vienna.
Mosaic.
Right by Mosaic? By,
No,
by,
yeah.
by Tyson's?
No, what is it?
I think it's called the Mosaic Stop.
Anyway, so I was living right there, and I remember thinking, oh my God, I have to get on the Beltway to go to work. So, and because my office building, when I became a government contractor, was in Tyson's Corner. It was on Greensboro Drive. I think it's still there.
Hold on.
I can't remember what the subway is.
Station
Maybe?
Orange. Not Boston.
Not Falls Church.
Clarendon.
No, it's not Clarendon. It's right there by the bike path in Falls Church. What is it?
East Falls Church?
No, just
West
read me the
Falls Church.
Okay, I mean this. I need a map. You give me a picture.
Oh,
Images. Here we go. Okay, hold on. So there's
Dunloring.
East Falls.
Dunloring. It's Dunloring.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Okay, so
anyway, so
you lived in Dunloring.
yeah, I lived in Dunloring, and my office building, I just remember thinking it was so far away. I don't know why I thought that,
You didn't
But-
have to take the Beltway at all.
but I remember being petrified of being on the Beltway.
Where was
And
it?
the first time I was ever actually on the Beltway, because about a year before, I guess it was about a year, no, it was about just before I got divorced, we bought another car, and he had a car, but I never really had a car until then. And I just remember I was on the Beltway, and you know how it's that left exit from the Beltway to go on 395? I'd never in my life ever heard of a left exit. So
To be
I was
fair,
like
it
going
shouldn't exist.
along, well, because they don't make any logical sense.
They shouldn't exist. What?
Anyway, so I'm going along, and I remember driving by going, oh my God, that was my exit. I couldn't believe that they would put an exit on the left-hand side of a road.
Welcome
Nobody
to
does.
Virginia.
Yes, I learned that. Virginia is crazy that way.
Well, that's why on the signs, when they say exit and it has the exit and then the number, if it's
I
on
know.
the left-hand side of the sign, it's a left exit. If it's on the right, it's on the right.
But it shouldn't. It shouldn't be a thing. Like why?
It doesn't
Why?
make any sense.
Wait, so hold on. You lived in Dunloring. Where was your office? DC?
Oh, at that time it was the Key Building. So Roslyn.
Oh, in Roslyn. Got it.
Ah,
Right,
okay.
right. Right. And I would take the bus to the Pentagon and then go to Roslyn.
That's easy enough.
How long did it take you to get there?
I want to say it wasn't long, like maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes, maybe. The bus, I hated the bus.
Yeah, but see,
Because-
back then, like there wasn't headphones, there wasn't like podcasts or anything like that you could read, or you could just watch the road go by.
Everybody read the newspaper. There would be newspapers everywhere. Like, yeah, it was terrible. But the bus, I hated the bus. The subway was okay because I wasn't on it very long. And then you just hopped off and went into Roslyn. But anyway, so yeah, so then I became a government contractor, and the first place I worked, well, actually, what time is it? Yeah, we should probably stop there.
All right, so hold on. So what year is this?
So this would be, let's see. This would be, it's probably 79.
All right, and are you still married at this point?
At this point I am, but not for long.
How long did you know this Jen before you married him?
Daniel, I was 18. I was stupid. I thought I knew everything. I think I probably knew him like 3 months. I don't know.
I mean, it was also the 70s, but still.
But which is why I've always told you guys, take your time. There's no rush. Don't do what I did. Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's just one of those things that's like, oh yeah, we met and got married. Wait, what?
Pretty much that's what happened. Yeah.
Oh God. Excuse me. I need to use the bathroom very badly.
All right, so this is
Well-
until 79.
Yeah, we're 79, 80-ish. Yeah.
/80. All right, so got it. Have you been
Okay.
seeing the videos, Mom?
I'm sorry?
You've been watching your own videos?
No, I haven't. Are they scary?
No, they're great.
I haven't watched them yet. I just filed them important information. I have this folder that says important information. One day I'll go back and watch them. I'm probably not going to like them.
Yeah, you will. You're gonna love them.
Okay. Are you enjoying this, Tyler?
I am enjoying it. Are you not enjoying it?
I am. It's a lot of work. And I have to say that I was kind of dreading my mom's story, because, and I always told you guys to deal with your issues up front. Well, I'm a master at not doing that. So I had to do a lot of soul searching this week about that. So
Oh yeah.
yeah.
That's not easy.
Well, it's not easy because, we didn't go talk to anybody when you had a life crisis. We just went, just like Oma, right? She's in the middle of a war, her uncle gets shot, and they just keep one foot in front of the other and they just keep going. So it was really hard for me to think about all the stuff that happened with my mom because it was so painful. I didn't want to think about it, so. And I had to talk to Laurel a lot about it because there are huge chunks that I've just blocked out of my memory because it was just so upsetting. So.
Yeah, I bet
Yeah.
it's.
But I'm
it's-
happy that I did it, and I never would have gone through all those feelings if you hadn't have been doing memories of me. So thank
So
you.
she remembers more than you.
No, we all remember little tidbits because we were already in a stressful situation before she even died, and it just got compounded, tripled, when she died. And then I went off to the army, and she went off to be 15, and Dad went off to drink, and we just never, we never really circled back and talked about it. And there are lots of times, like I was never really close to Aunt Laurel for many, many years. I mean, we would touch base here and there and talk and everything, but it really wasn't until your wedding, Tyler, that we started talking every day.
I know. What was the Marco Polo, the app, right?
Yes, we polo all the time. It's
And she
great.
was doing it to her kids, and then you
Yep.
said you wanted to do it with her.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really helpful though, especially like when you have a bad day, because you're just talking, right? You're not having a conversation. You're just talking out loud. It's kind of therapy, really. Yeah.
By the way, speaking of, you guys like with WhatsApp, you can send voice messages.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, are you guys sticking with WhatsApp or are you moving to Telegram?
I already have Telegram.
What's Telegram?
Telegram is the new WhatsApp because it has eliminated all the security inferiorities of WhatsApp. It really hasn't. It's just a different app.
Well, I mean, okay. So no, there's two things to remember about Telegram. Telegram, for one, is it's owned by it's owned by some private people, and if you actually want it to be secure, you need to select the proper options. And however, the thing with WhatsApp is essentially they collect your data, like because WhatsApp is owned by Facebook.
Right. Well, every app collects your data, and if you don't think that's true, that's a lie.
So there is limited data they can collect from like Telegram, for example, because what they do is Telegram has end-to-end encryption of messages, and there's
What
not
do
a
you need
backdoor on it.
encryption for?
What?
What do you need encryption for?
Why do you put passwords on your stuff, Tyler?
I don't really have passwords on many of my things.
I mean, or just put your money in stacks on the table.
Well, I don't have any money. I don't have any financial stuff on WhatsApp.
Yes.
This is just a way to communicate. When you start using it in a different way, then maybe. But so, do we have to go to Telegram now, or can we just stay on WhatsApp?
I'm fine staying on WhatsApp. It's easy. It's easier. I mean,
Is it free? Is Telegram free?
Everything's
it's
free.
free.
And they take your data. That's the
The price you pay.
yeah.
well, there are a lot of apps out there that are free and like they that do a good job, but these are what I like to refer to as like rage products that someone got really upset with one day with there being no good options, so they made their own and they're like, I only want these features. Why can't I find them anywhere? I'll do it myself.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right, guys. This has been.
By the way, did I tell you that I named my duck, Mom?
Ooh, what'd you
Yeah,
name?
but I can't remember his name.
Carnegie.
Carnegie. That's right, Melon.
Well, yeah.
Yes, that's perfect. All right. So
Yep.
next week, same bat channel, same time.
Yeah.
And we're
Okay.
talking about 80s. Are we 80s?
1979 and
Oh, 79.
beyond.
Okay.
Mom, you better come up with some more memories. We're going fast.
Are we going fast? Well, we'll slow down soon here.
Okay.
I have
Alright.
a good question for you before we end. What did it smell like in the barracks?
It didn't smell. It was clean. Are you kidding? Oh my
Yeah,
God.
no, but like, were the cleaning products just like plain cleaning products, or like did it smell like chlorine, or did it smell like bleach? What did
Well,
it
you
smell?
had to clean we didn't have a maid, right? So you had to clean everything. And
Mhm.
it did. It smelled like bleach and Comet, ammonia maybe. But no, the barracks wasn't dirty. Now, our individual rooms, when I got to Fort Myer, they could be kind of messy. But the common areas, we all had to clean those. Yeah. Oh, and I remember they had like, there were these television areas with all these couches with plastic over them. I'm like,
Ugh.
ugh.
Ooh, and they crinkled when you sit down on them.
Yes, I hated it.
And
And
when
all
it
the
gets
girls
warm out,
would
you
like
stick
gather
to them.
around on there and watch The Price is Right. I'm like, I'm gonna go read a book.
Wait, why did they do the plastic?
'Cause
Well,
you can wipe
so
it off.
it lasts longer and you can clean it easier. Why not just make plastic furniture? That's what I don't even know why we had upholstery furniture there. So, but no, the berries didn't smell at all.
I was just no, I didn't mean did it smell bad. Like so essentially two of the closest area of your brain related to memory is your sense of smell. So oftentimes if you like struggle to think of things, like your sense of smell, like Tyler, I know for a fact, if I talk about Krapfen or like the Apfelringe, like the apple rings that Oma makes, and you can like if you think back and you were going to pick them up and you open the door, you can smell like the fat in the air.
I think that's true because one of my favorite memories of my grandmother is the smell of her cinnamon rolls.
Yeah, I mean, it's stuff like that.
I remember eating like 17 of them.
I remember you doing that and then like lying on the floor and contemplating life choices and then getting up and eating a new one.
I remember when I got old enough, I would go over to her house and I would eat like 6 or 7 and then drive them back home and have 6 or 7 more. And I would feel terrible.
I guess so. All that lard, my God. Ugh.
I bet. But yeah, I mean, like, so this is why I keep asking these questions about what did it smell like because it can often spark something.
Well, that's a good point, Daniel. So.
And also because I'm curious.
All right. Well, I'm off for my walk now. You guys have a good weekend. Love you guys.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, by the way, I trimmed my beard.
I see. It looks much better. Your head doesn't look as fluffy either. Goodbye.